Today, I'm going to be making one of my favorite winter soups. It's the Italian wedding soup. So let's get started. I've already started with the carrots. I'm going to keep the pieces to a 1/4 inch. All right, now that I've got the carrots done, move that into the bowl here. All right, and got the celery. I've already wiped them down, cleaned them up, and we're going to do the same thing. You can make them into cubes, but I like to keep them the same as the carrot, kind of a half moon shape. So just going to take the ends off here. They're a little dry, like that. Okay. So let's get that into our bowl here too. And if you've never had Italian wedding soup, this is a treat for you. This is really good. It's one of my favorite soups. Chop up a little garlic here too. Look at this clove. This thing is huge. So just going to cut that in half. Half of it I'm going to use for the meatballs. Okay, give it a kind of a chop here. Keep that aside. We're going to use the onion. All right, so now let's talk about the escarole here. So I've got about a half a head of escarole here. You can use a whole head. It'll shrink down. I'm only going to use about half here. Kind of a rough chop. And in some of the back end, we're just going to get rid of that. That's can be a little bit bitter. So now you can see that there's dirt in here. So I'm just going to get this into a bowl, kind of fluff it out a little bit so everything can get cleaned. Got water in here. We're just going to give it a little toss around here just to get some of that dirt off. We're going to let that settle, and then I'm going to rinse it out and do it again. So I'm going to do it a couple times to make sure I get all that dirt out of there. So now that I got the vegetables all set and the escarole just kind of soaking in, I've got about 2/3 of a pound, 3/4 of a pound of ground beef. Now you can mix and match for the meatballs. You can add lamb meat, you can add pork, whatever you want. I'm just going to be using a basic ground beef. It's an 80/20. This is a Parmigiano Romano Asiago blend. So I'm going to get maybe a couple of tablespoons worth in there. All right. Okay, a little bit of salt, not too much, because the cheese is going to contain quite a bit. A little black pepper. Okay, some dry oregano and parsley. I'm using a dry parsley here. Okay. Now I've got the other half of that large garlic clove. I'm just going to grate it up in here. And the reason why I want to do that, because one, it enhances the flavor, gets all the oils and juices flowing. Also, it keeps the bits to a minimum. It's really, really small. It's more like a paste. So I'm just going to shave that or shred that in there. So you can see back here, it's kind of a paste, really, really thin. All right, so I get that in here. I'm going to do the same with the onion. I left a little bit of the onion there. I didn't want to have too many thick pieces in there. I want it to be real small because the meatballs are going to be about 1 inch in diameter. So I'm just going to grate some onion in there. And this is basically juicing the onion. You can see how much juice is in there. Again, it's going to be easier to mix together into the meat because the meatballs are kind of small. And I've got Italian seasoned breadcrumbs here too, which we're going to just put in a little bit for now. And 1 egg, room temperature egg. So 1 egg. Now I'm going to start this off with a fork. You can get your hands in on that. I just want to get started off because I don't want to overwork the meat too much. Otherwise, the meatballs get kind of dense. And we're not going to be, searing them like you would a normal meatball, not frying them in a pan or anything. They're going to go directly into the soup. So I'm also going to get some of this fresh basil that I took from my aero garden there. We're going to slice some of that in there. It's always a nice fresh flavor. And I'm going to chop it really, really fine. That way you don't have these big bits in here either. And that fresh basil just awesome, awesome. Smells great. Okay, get that in there. And just gonna work it around a little bit just to get everything working, get everything blended together. And it gives me a chance to feel the texture, see if I need to add any more breadcrumbs, if it's too dry, if I have to add any liquid. And if you can add liquid, you can add a little bit of oil or even a little bit of milk. That might work too. It'll help keep it from getting too stiff. But I think think it's fine. I think we're good here. And you don't want to add too much breadcrumb either, because in the soup you'll get that mush in the soup. You don't want that. All right. So basically, the size of the meatballs we're going to go for is kind of small, and you can see kind of that size there, like that. So it's about 1 inch or so. So like this, and just roll them up. You don't want to overwork them again. You can measure them if you want, but I kind of like the fact that they're all kind of different sizes, different shapes. Kind of makes it interesting. So I'm going to finish making these, then we'll get into cooking the soup. Turn the heat on. Turn that on to medium. Never want to heat up a pan on high, so let that heat up on medium. Add about 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of good olive oil. All right. So now I'm going to get the onion in there, and we'll get the garlic on top of it. Just a pinch of salt and black pepper. All right, the onions and the garlic are softening up. You don't want to let them go too long, just until you start smelling the aroma of the garlic. I'm going to get the rest of the vegetables, the celery and the carrots in there. They're the ones that are going to take a bit longer to cook. So we're just going to let this go a bit. Now that the vegetables have sauteed for about 5 minutes, I'm going to use 6 cups of chicken broth, 2 bay leaves, and I'm going to add about another 2 cups of water. Give it a stir. I'm going to bring it to a boil and let it boil for about 15-20 minutes until all the carrots and onions are completely cooked. Now the soup has been boiling for about 20 minutes or so. I'm going to get the meatballs in, get them all in there. Give that a stir. Get the escarole in there too, and this will wilt down. And make sure it's all submerged. Put the lid on. We're going to bring it to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer for about a half hour to 45 minutes. Okay, you want to make sure you pull out your bay leaves. And I'm going to be using some orzo, which looks like rice. It's kind of a rice-shaped pasta. So I'm going to use maybe about 1/2 cup. Get that in there. And it's probably going to take about 7 or 8 minutes to cook through. I'm going to put the lid on and let it cook for about 5 to 7 minutes. All right, so it looks like it is done. Oh, smells great. So I'm just going to get some into this bowl here. Give it a little stir. Get some of the meatballs in there. Some of the soup. Get the carrots, beautiful colors. Brought it over. Ooh, that's steaming hot, but that's good. So I'm going to get some of this Parmesan Reggiano on the top and some of this crusty bread too. A little garlic bread. All right. So I'm gonna give this a taste, even though it's really hot. Somebody's got to make the sacrifice. I'll do it. I mean, look at these meatballs. The orzo, the carrots, onions, the escarole. So I'm gonna take a little bit here. Ooh. Ooh, that's hot, but it's delicious. Wow. And of course you got the crusty bread here. You can dip into it to help cool it off like little croutons. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Give me some likes, some shares, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.